Happy Monday morning. It's a brand new week here inside the FingerLakes1.com studio. This is Finger Lakes Today, presented by DeSanto Propane. I'm Josh Durso.
And I'm Sydney Radka, and today we're going to be talking about the Bills' disappointing loss yesterday in the AFC Divisional against Cincinnati, and of course the biggest news to get your week started. We're also going to be joined by Alexis, Hobart, and Casey Stivers to talk about Waterloo's latest efforts in the revitalized downtown. But first, of course, we need to look at the forecast. So how's it look?
Pretty much the way it has the last 3 weeks, it seems like. So we're going to be getting a little more wintry this week. We've got a couple chances of snow. We've got Thursday highlighted in yellow, obviously, because there's a chance that we might actually see accumulating snow on Thursday, which would be a big shift from the last few weeks. But what isn't is the fact that we're going to see snow showers, lots of clouds, and temperatures hovering in the low 30s. Pretty much all week long, and then we wrap it up on Friday and look ahead to the weekend with clouds, but maybe temperatures that are going to fall a little bit and maybe give us a better chance for some serious snowfall. If you want to see the latest weather news or the latest forecast information, check out the FingerLakes1.com Weather Center.
That seems like a lot of gloominess, if you ask me.
And it's to the point now where I don't even want to talk about the weather anymore on the show. It's just clouds. We get rain. It rained like last night. It was supposed to be snow, and the whole way down to work this morning, it was just
slush,
rain.
Nasty.
So, yeah, here we are.
Well, great. But let's hear some other things. Let's talk about the biggest stories from FL1 Morning Edition newsletter. I think the first one we want to talk about is flu cases are down. I don't know how much, but what does this mean for the second half of winter?
So a little bit of an unexpected shift here with the frequency of flu cases. So a lot of people thought after the holiday season that we would see a pretty significant increase in flu cases. Obviously, RSV was going around, has been going around, coronavirus too, COVID-19. But flu cases are down about half.
Wow.
So a really significant decrease, and one that's basically come, I would say, about a month to 45 days earlier than what most health experts expected, and state officials for that matter. Most agreed that late February, early March would be when we would start to see the shift towards spring. As for the why or what we expect to see over the next 30 to 45 days, obviously health officials are continuing to urge everybody get their flu shot, even if they haven't gotten it yet. Because there could be another surge of flu. But I will say, if the weather continues to be the way it has been, which is unseasonably warm, where people aren't quite trapped indoors as much as they normally are or would be in the winter, pretty good chance that we see a continued trend downward with the flu cases. Now, that doesn't change anything with RSV or like a lot of folks have been talking about, just this weird sickness that they can't really put their finger on. Or
you're like, is it viral? Is it contagious? What's going on?
Lots
I
of
don't know.
Colds and bugs
Been
like
there,
that,
done that
going around that people are getting that don't fit into any of these categories: flu A, flu B, COVID, or anything like that. So, of course,
surprise.
Continue to be vigilant, wash your hands, and things should be okay. But this is a really good sign that maybe winter won't be that bad.
Love that. Report on road repair costs. What do we know?
It's really expensive to pave roads.
We did talk about that a little bit.
We knew that, right? So last week we talked about some of the money that had been invested over the last few years on infrastructure repairs, upgrades, things like that. So roads, bridges, and a new report that came out over the weekend shows just how much the cost to, say, pave a road has increased. And that percentage is between 77 and 256%. So you think about what $1 billion would have done before the last year or two happened. And now that same $1 billion would need about like $2.5 billion of investment to do that amount of work. So it's really eye-opening. The upside here, I guess, is that we are starting to see inflation come into check. And a lot of the longer economic forecasts for 2023 show that maybe inflation is going to start going the other direction. So maybe that $1 billion that the state invested last year in infrastructure will go a little bit further in the second half of the year. But as we were talking last week about how bumpy and potholy some roads are in the Finger Lakes, this obviously is not a good sign for that. We're going to keep getting thrown all over the road.
Yay.
Obviously.
There's a major employer in Tompkins County that is downsizing. What's happening with that?
Yeah, so it kind of came out of nowhere, and I want to get this right, so we're going to pull it up here. Um, 250 jobs, roughly, is what's going to be lost at the Borg Warner facility in Tompkins County. So they have two manufacturing facilities, and one of them is downsizing and basically moving out so that they can do the work at another facility. So they're consolidating, like
Okay,
a lot of
right.
like a lot of manufacturing does. The company says that this transition will be done by the end of 2024. Now, originally there was concern that this was going to happen this year. So a lot of people in Tompkins County, one of the largest employers in Tompkins County, they employ about 1,500 people. There was a lot of concern that, oh no,
Right, of course. The
all of these,
uncertainty.
all 200 plus of these jobs that are expected to be eliminated in Tompkins County will be gone by the end of the year. Now, these people have a bit of a reprieve. It's looking more like the end of 2024.
Okay.
But it goes back to the greater point here that with the economic uncertainty that we're seeing right now across the whole U.S., companies like this, large manufacturing companies, are looking for ways to basically consolidate their efforts, make them more efficient, and make them more cost effective so they can continue operating overall.
Of course.
And unfortunately, New York is a tough place to do business, and it's an expensive place to do business. So in this case, this was one example of Borg Warner being able to say, hey, we can do this more cost effectively in another place, and they will.
Wow.
So
Well,
that's that.
remember, you can always sign up for the FL1 Morning Edition newsletter by clicking on the link on our homepage or, of course, by visiting fingerlakes1.com/newsletter. We're going to take a quick break, and on the other side, we'll be joined by Alexis Hobart and Casey Stivers to talk downtown revitalization in Waterloo. Stay tuned.
This is Rebecca Swift for Dr. Jeffrey Halstead and Canandaigua Dentistry. Dr. Halstead has been Canandaigua's hometown dentist for more than 35 years. If you're looking for a dentist who offers routine dental care as well as cosmetic dentistry, implants, and dentures from a highly trained and experienced staff, Canandaigua Dentistry will go the extra smile for you. Committed to local veteran organizations as well as seniors in the Finger Lakes, Canandaigua Dentistry offers discounts for both, as well as an in-house dental membership program for those without insurance. The office is located at 3240 Middle Cheshire Road in Canandaigua, or you can give them a call at 585-394-5230. Visit CanandaiguaDentistry.com to learn more about the team and follow on Facebook and Instagram today.
As the months turn colder, make sure you're able to be comfortable. Don't get left out in the cold this winter. Choose DeSanto Propane. Over 8 million households already heat with propane because a propane furnace can heat air up to 25 degrees warmer than electricity. Propane radiant heat can improve air quality in a home by cutting down on dust and allergens and more. Choose DeSanto today and see why for 80 years DeSanto Propane is 4 generations strong as a trustworthy family-owned business with unmatched customer service. Go online at DeSantoPropane.com for more info. DISANTO Propane.com or call toll-free at 1-800-752-4574 today. Since 1937, the difference has been DeSanto Propane.
Today's program is brought to you thanks to support from Gino's Pizzeria and Restaurant. Live, laugh, and eat well. It's the Italian way. It's the Chinese way. Auburn Auto Group. Experience the difference at AuburnAutoGroup.com. Finger Lakes Partners. Insurance for your life, home, auto, and future. Get a free quote at FingerLakesInsurance.com. Little John and Barbie Orthodontics. Celebrating over 40 years. Visit them online at littlejohnortho.com. Upstate Fiber Networks. Mass and reliable fiber internet straight to your home. Check for availability in your area at upstatefibernetworks.com. Midday Miras and Roofing. Your hometown personal injury attorneys. Get a free consultation at middaymirasroofing.com.
All right, welcome back to Finger Lakes. Today we're joined in studio by Casey Stivers and Alexis Hobart. They're here to talk about downtown Waterloo. Thanks so much for being here today, guys. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having us.
So let's start with the recent successes of downtown. Obviously, the face of downtown has changed a bit over the last few years. When you're thinking about the direction that downtown Waterloo needs to go or will go in the future, what are some of the recent successes that you want to kind of highlight and want people to think about?
Yeah, so coming from an investor standpoint, Stivers Enterprises has done a lot of work in Waterloo recently, and we've kind of focused on bringing living spaces to Waterloo, kind of getting that mass quantity in Waterloo, so there's people that can then use the shops, and then you got that mass volume in Waterloo. So we've been focusing on bringing new apartment life. We've created like 7 new storefronts in the last couple years, so bringing new businesses to Waterloo, and we got another couple projects in the near future. So
I'm always curious when it comes to downtown, is housing the answer to the parking complaint that people tend to have about downtown settings not being that great for consumers? The thought being, I guess, if you put consumers in downtown, they don't have to park, they don't have to go, they will just naturally use downtown more?
That's a good point. Yeah, I think that would help with that issue, definitely. But our concern is just getting that mass of people to utilize the businesses so the businesses can thrive, and then domino effect from there.
And how I know there's been a little bit of a narrative with so many vacant open storefronts. How are we going to shift the narrative on downtown being dead per se?
Right. I think what our focus is as investors is kind of creating these beautiful spaces, creating businesses that people want to not so much visit, but just inhabit. So we want to make sure that these places are fresh and new and have new life to them. Same with our apartment settings. We want to make sure that they're high quality apartments, places people want to live and stay for a while. So we're just kind of trying to infrastructurally turn the key on these old buildings. We're doing a lot of work with the historic tax credits and things like that. So keeping the integrity of the history of Waterloo, but also upgrading it.
Of course.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm sure people really appreciate that aspect of keeping that history
They
as
do.
well.
People like change, but not that.
Of course.
Much change.
Especially in a small town.
Right.
Alexis, when it comes to revitalizing downtown, what are some of the things that you're thinking about in terms of Waterloo?
Filling those vacant buildings is being a part of the DRI or the Economic Development Committee. We've worked long and hard for a long time and try to engage the public to see what their thoughts are, but bringing businesses to those vacant storefronts. There were talks of making 3 to 9 approximately on West Main Street. Waterloo Eats was in the talks of having a food place, more like a food court kind of area. Also, a brewery, if we could get, even if it's a tasting site, would be a good draw. People
Absolutely.
seem to drive or want to go to those places that would bring people into the village of Waterloo. I know the dance studio has opened up. There's a daycare that's going to be opening up.
Oh, awesome.
So there's lots of ideas and things coming. Another part of it is Stan's, the old Stan's restaurant, trying to find, that should be turnkey, that someone could go in and operate
Absolutely.
a business. And also across from Community Bank is going to be a bakery that's going to be coming. That's in the works too.
That's so
really
exciting.
filling those vacant spots and bringing life back to Waterloo.
And just what you just mentioned alone, there's so much different types of businesses coming in that draw so many different types of people. I personally have been following the Waterloo Eats and hoping and praying that one comes to fruition, because I think it's such a great idea. But I think it's awesome too, the daycare that's going to have a big draw for families, the bakery. It's so exciting for Waterloo.
It definitely is. When it comes to connecting the canal water to downtown, obviously, in terms of the DRI, the state's made it clear that that is a priority, that's a must. I'm curious what both of you think about what opportunities Waterloo has to connect water to downtown. Where does it start, and what are kind of some of the key opportunities there?
Yeah, so As you mentioned, the New York State Canal System and NYPA, who helps fund some of the canals, is really putting a lot of funding into the canal right now. They're looking for infrastructure along the canal, events along the canal. So the amount of money that's out there to do these projects is just insane. And I think what we're focusing on is water activity, what we can do right now. So what we can do right now is kind of extend docks, bring boating traffic to Waterloo. We can make it more appealing to get off Oak Island and walk to downtown. We can increase signage to direct people that way. So small steps right now, but ideally there would be some more infrastructure along the canal. There's that piece of property next to Waterloo Lock 4 that they're looking to put something. I've heard hotel, I've heard something, just to put businesses or accommodations on the water, like you guys
Of
are
course.
so successful here in Waterloo or Seneca Falls. So putting businesses on the water is the long-term goal, yeah.
And obviously, when people think of some of the communities across the Finger Lakes that have a canal or water, thinking like Newark, Lyons, Seneca Falls, obviously it feels like a bit more connectivity just because of the geographic location
Right.
of the water compared to Waterloo to downtown. Is that maybe the biggest challenge, is creating that infrastructure that you're talking about?
It is, yeah, and that's why I say long-term goal, because it is it is more of a long-term goal. I think right now our focus is just creating that connection initially, letting people know that Waterloo does have access to the canal, and helping them see that by maybe promoting boat tours out of Oak Island, or
Absolutely.
just little things we can do right now to get the hype around the canal in Waterloo, and then later there will be a need for businesses along the canal. Baby
Awesome.
steps for the canal.
So what do you both think are going to be some of the best ways to reduce the vacancy in the downtown setting? Or what are you hoping for is going to be a best way for that?
Well, as Casey had mentioned, Stivers is working on filling those upper levels of the Main Street Shop Center with apartments. And if you get people there, hopefully you will get people using those businesses that we're talking about and hoping will come and fill the lower levels.
Beautiful.
Where does I'm thinking like Washington Street and south of Main Street, is that kind of the corridor that needs to be built if this this water to downtown connection is going to be made? Does some extra emphasis need to be put on the space that some folks might think, frankly, is a tiny bit outside of traditional downtown?
Definitely, yeah. I mean, right now, Waterloo downtown, the immediate downtown needs love first, I think. Develop your downtown and then the rest will grow. So we're focusing heavy on the immediate downtown. We just completed the big projects on Virginia Street, so a little off the beaten path. So we're spidering out to these other streets as we can, but right now, heavy on the immediate downtown, getting those businesses down there is the priority.
And of course, this question for both of you: how do you feel about Waterloo's chances this time around for the DRI? Obviously, that's why we're here. It's a big thing.
I think they're really good. The first step was being able to present, to be picked to be one of the presenters. So once they kind of knocked it down and had the finalists named, we were in that. So we are anxiously awaiting to see if we won this time around, but are very hopeful. In, we're saying that Geneva has won it, Seneca Falls has won it, and Waterloo will kind of bridge that gap along routes 5 and 20.
I was going to say, is that part of the argument? Like, these other communities right around Waterloo have gotten this investment. It makes sense for the next round of investment to come to the community that's sandwiched in between.
That was our big argument for the whole thing. And I've got to give a shout out actually to Alexis. And Waterloo has this committee that was just created about a year and a half ago. It's called the Waterloo Economic Development Committee. And this committee has worked behind the scenes so tirelessly to create this DRI funding and just to help people get in place, help people fill the daycare, help people fill the dance studio. I mean, they're just silent killers tackling these projects, and I don't think they get enough recognition. But yes, for our DRI, we worked really hard. We did a whole video connecting the canal to Waterloo. We did a day in the life as a Waterloo resident kind of feel. And we put a lot of heart and soul into it. So I think we have a good shot. We're excited about the
Awesome.
results.
Well, we really appreciate you guys coming in today to talk about everything, and obviously we wish you the best of luck with the DRI application here.
Thanks for having us. We're excited.
Yes.
All right, on the other side of the break, we're going to be talking about the Buffalo Bills' disappointing showing in the AFC divisional round. Stay right there.
Since 1937, the difference has been DeSanto Propane. That's 80 years that DeSanto Propane has been servicing the community. DeSanto Propane is 4 generations strong as a trustworthy family-owned business, which is why everyone recommends DeSanto Propane. Choose DeSanto today and see why for 80 years DeSanto Propane has been heating the community with unmatched customer service. Go online at DeSantoPropane.com or call toll-free 1-800-752-4574 and like DeSanto Propane on Facebook for more tips and info today. DeSanto is celebrating 80 years, and there's never been a better time to switch to propane to fuel your entire house. DeSanto. Since 1937, the difference has been DeSanto Propane.
Dr. Jeffrey Halstead has been Canandaigua's hometown dentist for more than 35 years. Canandaigua Dentistry offers routine dental care, as well as cosmetic dentistry, implants, and dentures from a highly trained, experienced staff. A proud supporter of local veteran organizations, Canandaigua Dentistry offers veteran and senior discounts, as well as an in-house dental membership program for people without insurance. Dr. Halstead and Canandaigua Dentistry is committed to providing you with personal, professional care. Whether you are searching for a family dentist or a cosmetic dentist, the Canandaigua Dentistry team promises to go the extra smile for you. Stop by the office located at 3240 Middle Cheshire Road in Canandaigua or call 585-394-5230 to talk with the team today. Visit www.canandaiguadentistry.com to learn more and find them on Facebook and Instagram too.
Today's program is brought to you thanks to support from Gino's Pizzeria and Restaurant. Live, laugh, and eat well. It's the Italian way. It's the Gino's way. Auburn Auto Group. Experience the difference at auburnautogroup.com. Finger Lakes Partners. Insurance for your life, home, auto, and future. Get a free quote at fingerlakesinsurance.com. Little John and Barbie Orthodontics. Celebrating over 40 years. Visit them online at littlejohnortho.com. Upstate Fiber Networks. Massive and reliable fiber internet straight to your home. Check for availability in your area at upstatefibernetworks.com. Midday, Miras, and Ricky, your hometown personal injury attorneys. Get a free consultation at middaymirasricky.com.
Welcome back to Finger Lakes Today. We are going to talk sports now. I'm sure everybody is super excited and or very upset to talk about Bills pretty much getting smoked at home. So Nate Sharman is here, and so is Jim Sinicropi. Welcome, guys. Let's hear about some sports.
Yeah, smoked is an understatement, right? You know, Bengals 27, Bills 10. Not the ending that Bills fans saw. We knew that this game could have been a loser for the Bills. You know, this was playing against a tough Cincinnati team that's been here before, but we didn't really expect that showing out of the Bills. Just kind of got manhandled up and down the field, in my opinion.
Not all of us expected it, Nate.
No, I didn't. No, like I said, I thought they could lose, but I didn't think they would get just blown out of their own building.
Yeah, that's true. But I've been saying the past week or two on this show that the Bills aren't as good as people think they are. And it's not that I root for the Bills, but if you look at what they brought to the table, it's no better than last year. Matter of fact, it's a little worse. Von Miller, we talked about not being there is a huge thing.
Yeah, that probably doesn't. I mean, I've seen that a lot of that discourse on Twitter and stuff.
Their secondary is
losing by 17. There's one or two players aren't really going to change it. You really gotta have a better game plan and on all aspects of the side of the game. So
no running game, which we saw was important.
I mean, they abandoned the running game in the second quarter. They didn't even try.
Yeah.
I mean, you're down 14. They almost acted like they were.
Yeah.
They needed to throw it in the fourth quarter, but there's still plenty of game left at that point.
Was it more coaching at that point? Because it seemed more like a bad plan.
On the offensive side, absolutely. You know, that's something I've been banging the drum all year with Ken Dorsey, the first-year offensive coordinator for the Bills. I haven't liked the way he's called games all season, and this is just, you know, you saw the discourse on Twitter. I'll talk about again. You know, with you're talking about Ken Dorsey. You know, they put up the Madden verticals, right? You know, this is all he's got. He just throws it down the field, and I think that's interesting. Part of that might be on Josh Allen too. But you didn't really see a lot of that last year, so definitely part of that offensively wasn't good. Defensively wasn't good either. Leslie Frazier struggled last night too on the defensive side. So Yeah, for me, I've always blamed the offense more than the defense this year, so I'll continue to do that for this game.
Do we
Well, yeah, 10
think
points. Not
10 points is not enough. That's
The-
they haven't scored that least all year. That's the least amount they've scored. So
the Allen
It's tough to
injury?
do that.
Do we feel like there may be something more to that injured arm of his than the organization has led on this year? I mean, since it happened in week 6, he's literally been a different quarterback by the numbers.
He doesn't have the weapons that Joe Burrow has at his disposal.
not even close, right?
No.
That's valid.
You look at. I think that Stephon Diggs is obviously great for the Bills. They picked him up so they'd have that number one guy, but he demands the ball a little too much. And not say he's not a team player. Really like Stephon Diggs, but he complains when he doesn't get the ball,
Right.
or he doesn't get it thrown that way, and so that probably factors into Ken Dorsey's play calling a little bit. But you look at that game, and there was a ball that Gabe Davis dropped that was at a crucial time when maybe the Bills might have been able to remain in the game, and hit him right in the hands. And he dropped it. And so, I don't know. It's tough to say, well, the Bills need to now look at getting a better number 2 receiver.
Oh, for sure.
Because Gabe Davis last year, and in big games, has
Right.
previously just been great. But
Yeah, playoff Gabe is something they've called him. Last year in the Chiefs game, he had 200 yards and 4 touchdowns. So you're thinking all offseason, you're like, this guy's going to make a step. This guy's going to be awesome. And then this year he's been, a disappointment. You could take a look at his yardages and stuff, and he's got pretty good numbers, really, and all realistic for a number 2 receiver. But like Jim said, in the big moments, he's not been able to make plays.
But yeah, a lack of a running game in the big games. If you look at the way that San Francisco eventually beat Dallas last night, it was when they just committed to the run and grounded out. With Christian McCaffrey and Mitchell down the stretch, just run after run after run.
Right.
And
The running game wasn't bad this year. It was better than last year.
but it wasn't very good Sunday.
Right.
No.
Are we concerned about the outburst, I guess, between Diggs and Allen on the sideline, and then Diggs just kind of hightailing it out after the game and having to be brought back to the locker room and then taken off
Right.
again?
I'm a little torn by that because
Agreed.
it's something, you take a look. He's a leader on the team. He's a captain. So I think part of that, being at the press conference is important in a way. You saw Josh Allen go to the presser and answer questions and be very captain-like.
Mm-hmm.
But at the other side of the coin, Diggs is that fire competitor. He's that guy that's gonna, do stuff that may not look great, but you talk to any of his teammates and they're okay with it. Every single one of them. They asked questions to a bunch of different guys last night. John McDermott, even the coach, and everyone's okay with it. So I'm really torn on that, Josh. What do you think about it, Jim?
Well, I always get a little annoyed when I see a wide receiver, and not say that Stephon Diggs is a prima donna or anything, but some of these wide receivers that act that way, it's like, okay, buddy, look at your offensive and defensive linemen who, every single player in hand-to-hand combat, with each other.
Right.
And, you're running up and down the field, minimal contact, trying to get off the line of scrimmage maybe, but, you're not like, he's not going to make. If we threw the ball to Stephon Diggs more, that wasn't going to make the difference last night. I just think football is a consummate team game.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you got 11 guys both sides of the ball, and so when anybody other than the quarterback draws too much attention to themselves on a football team, I think it's a little annoying.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not really knocking Stephon Diggs. I think he's obviously a guy that's in place for next year, but you wonder what the Bills can do because they don't got a lot of money to shop with.
No, they have no cap room.
And you're gonna go with. I was a little upset when they got rid of Zach Moss, although I guess he's not really, going to be a true number one. He did all right with Indianapolis, after the
Right,
trade,
yeah.
I guess, but so you got Cook and Singletary.
Singletary be gone too. I mean, he's a free agent, and they're not gonna. I would be surprised if they brought him back.
Yeah, so I mean, maybe they look in the draft for some diamond in the rough in the late round, in the middle rounds. But defensively, is Von Miller going to be back? Because they were a different team in the beginning of the year when Von Miller was there. But as far as Josh Allen not being as good as Joe Burrow or not being as good as Patrick Mahomes, I don't agree with that. I think Josh Allen is fine. He's your quarterback. I think he can get you there. Still relatively young. But with every team, there's a window. And you got to wonder, next year is going to be crucial.
Right.
for the Bills? Are you going to progress? Are you going to, stay the same or get worse? Because that's the way it works. 3 years ago, the Bengals weren't a very good team, and now look at them.
Right.
And so when another team, steps into that role, other teams fall out of it. So are the Bills going to step up next year and be better, or are they going to be the same?
Right.
Because the window will close.
Right.
Well, I guess then this is a good time to ask this question then. Obviously, looking at their chances even next year in just the AFC East, if, say, a Lamar Jackson winds up in Miami, obviously we don't know if something like that is going to happen, but the way things are in Baltimore, it's one of the ideas that's being tossed around. If the Jets or the Dolphins make any kind of improvement, could they not give Buffalo a run for their money in the division next year?
They did
if
this
Buffalo
year, yeah.
doesn't have a chance to really improve on the offensive side of the ball, because that's really right. That's really where they need to improve is offense. You need to be able to put up 30 to 40 to beat a Kansas City or to beat a Cincinnati.
Right, for sure. And this year the Jets and the Dolphins beat them. And then they're not even. You speak about Lamar Jackson. They have rumors that he could go to the Jets or something like that. Who knows with that? That's a whole nother situation. But I want to go back to that window because I think that's so important to talk about because. Joe Burrow talked about before the game, when's your window? And he says, as long as I'm here, this is the window. Mm-hmm. And that's true. And I think that's true with Josh Allen, too. Yeah. But at the end of the day, you got to look at, they're paying Josh Allen double next year of what they had to pay him this year, and they had to pay him last year. So, your window, so to speak, can really come early in that rookie contract with your quarterback because you don't have to pay him that much.
And that's what Bills fans thought this year was.
Right, and that's what we thought,
It wasn't.
Yeah, for sure, yeah. It's... I think they got to pay him upwards of $40 million next year, and so that just makes it so hard. They got to find a way to pay guys like Edmonds and Poyer, excuse me. It's going to be hard to bring back both of those. Pretty much impossible to bring back both of them. They're going to have to make a really tough decision on bringing back one of them. So that's something that's going to be really difficult, and so there's going to be some really big question marks this offseason coming on one of those
drives.
drives.
This is a fan base that has never experienced a Super Bowl title. They've been there 40 years in a row in the mid 80s. And
90s
now, or mid 90s, right? And now, this, like I said, we thought this was the year. They made the improvements. The beginning of the year started. They were favorites to win the Super Bowl at one point, maybe week 2 or 3 or 4, and
all season, yeah.
Yeah, until something happened at the end of the season. I keep going back to the Von Miller injury, but it was probably more than that. And the red flags to me were the Miami games. Miami Bills should have cleaned at home in the first round.
Yeah.
They should have killed them. And so that, to me, just solidified it. That's why I bet the Bengals, despite the fact that I wanted the Bills to win. And then, the other thing is, it was in Highmark Stadium. The Bengals came into Highmark Stadium in the snow and just clean their clock. Worst game of the weekend. Well, the Giants-Eagles game, too.
Yeah, what a disappointing weekend for upstate
New
New
York.
York.
Yeah.
New York sports fans having a tough go of it today.
But you had to see it coming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In retrospect, even Bills fans had to see this coming.
I didn't see them getting blown the doors off them. I didn't see that coming. I don't think anyone saw that coming.
Well, maybe not.
I think that goes back to Cincinnati being kind of that Bengals team being a bit underrated in general. I don't think people put the Bengals in the same category as the Chiefs, but I think as far as offensive production goes, I think they have to be right there.
And really credit to the Bengals, too, because they were able to put the fact that they were selling AFC Championship tickets next week in Atlanta, which is something they always do. Even Cincinnati was selling tickets for a possible game in Cincinnati against Jacksonville. But they were able to put that as bulletin board material. Yeah. Zach Taylor, coach of the Bengals, was able to tell his team that they don't believe in us.
Right.
And there's nothing better that you can do as a head coach than to give your guys bulletin board material.
5.5 point underdogs.
Really, that too.
Who made that line?
Yes, and that's something that that's really, really good coaching in my mind.
Well, go back to go back to last week. The same thing with the Dolphins game. It was a double-digit spread.
Yep.
And at no point during the game did it look like the Bills were playing like a team that was favored by double-digit points.
Vegas and the betting public was overvaluing Buffalo.
Yeah, that line was really interesting to me because the more people that bet the Bengals, it was still going towards the Bills.
Yeah.
You took a look at I looked at the handle right before kickoff, and it was about 70% Bengal fans So Vegas was
So
kind of doing
strange.
the thing, or 70% bagel tickets, and so but Vegas was doing the thing where they want you to bet the Bengals
Yeah.
because they,
Of course.
obviously, like Jim said, they would think the Bills are going to win, and so Vegas took a big hit last night with
Third,
Bills going down.
yeah, that Miami game, third string quarterback, coming up to Buffalo. That was a huge red flag. As poorly as the Bills closed that game out, but very disappointing. And looking at this weekend's games, I don't know who's got the edge.
Oh my God.
The Eagles. I think the Eagles are really good.
But how can?
Yeah.
But, I mean, the Eagles are really good, and I guess with Jalen Hurts coming back and performing well, it should cast any doubts away from his injury or the fact that we. But I look at I thought since about maybe week 8 or 9 that San Francisco is the best team in the NFC, and but yeah, they got to go to Philadelphia now. And they have Brock Purdy, and Philadelphia has Jalen Hurts.
Right.
But both defenses are great. And honestly, the last night's game, San Francisco won. It didn't play out too much differently than I thought. I figured San Francisco's defense would make 1 or 2 really big plays, and they had opportunities, especially at the end of the game when Greenlaw dropped the Dak Prescott pass that he could have took right in the end zone. A play like that turns that 1 touchdown game into a 2 or 3 touchdown game. That never really happened. There were a few interceptions.
A few.
But-
There should have been about 6 interceptions by the
Normally
49ers.
San Francisco make a big play, pick 6, something, but they still were able to win. But I don't know. I don't know about that game, and I don't know about the game on the other side because I got a lot of confidence in Pat Mahomes and the Chiefs and Andy Reid.
I genuinely don't know what's going to be left of that leg.
With his ankle, yeah.
His
that was bad.
His ankle is not as clean as he tried to make it sound after. I mean, you saw him in the fourth
Right.
quarter. He just was literally hobbling around
got a
not
week.
like Pat Mahomes.
Look at Chad Henne, though. He comes out off the bench and leads his team in 98-yard touchdown.
Of the weekend,
Pretty awesome.
in my mind, is Chad Henne.
That's pretty cool.
It's a 3-point game.
Anything is possible.
They start in their own 3-yard line. He marches them down the field, goes, I think, 7 to 10 on the drive, and next thing you know, they go into the locker room with a 2-score advantage. If that doesn't happen, or worse, Chad Henne does what a lot of guys would do in that situation and just kind of crumble and give Jacksonville a chance to get the ball back and go get the lead. And so Jacksonville's obviously a team to look at next year.
It's amazing how
Look
many
at
young
future
quarterbacks are in the
vets or
AFC.
something.
That's another thing with the Bills. You got to look at the AFC. You have so many, there are 4 or 5 good quarterbacks that are young.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
going to be it's a tough road for sure.
I think it showed in the Bills game. I have a lot of respect for Josh Allen. I think he's a great guy, but I don't know if he gets in his head too much, or when it came to these last few games, it looked like there was a lack of connection between the whole team.
For sure.
He was second guessing so much. I was getting so frustrated because I felt like he was holding on to the ball so long, like he was ready to throw a pass, and then he second guessed it, and I just felt like there wasn't that connection that you saw in the beginning of the season. And I hope maybe in the off season he works extra hard, they get that camaraderie back in the locker room, which I don't know if there isn't, but
There
it
could be a lot
looked
to
like
say about
it.
the camaraderie, but they
It
also
looks
just
like
came
it.
off the whole Mar Hamlin situation that was supposed to bring them together as a family, and I think
Yeah.
it did a little bit, but
It
maybe
did,
that
but-
overshadowed some of their deficiencies. But I don't think Josh Allen's the problem. I'd take
No,
Josh Allen as
right.
the quarterback of my team.
I don't think he's a problem. I think maybe he just needs another year under his belt to get a little more confidence and get a little bit more.
I mean, if he's
I
got
don't
better
know.
if he's got better weapons next year, then maybe he won't.
If
I don't know,
he's
he
got
threw
T.
he threw a lot of
Higgins-
interceptions the second half of the year, and that
Right,
I've
should've
been
went
kind of
opposite.
I've been giving the cop out as this injury. I think there's more to the arm than was let on during the regular season because they couldn't really afford to, especially with the way the defense had played. They couldn't really afford to lose offensive production. So I think Josh Allen kind of just played through it, and it kind of feels like some of the
Could be
things that he
something to be
did.
said for that for sure. But
I
if
mean-
you give me Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, and even going further behind that, Tyler Boyd,
Hayden Hurst was good last
better
night.
than Dustin Knox.
Oh,
you could
yeah.
argue. Joe Mixon obviously better than Devin Singletary, and Perrine.
Ryan's probably
he's
better than
Cook.
Terry.
So if you look at all the offensive skill positions, that Burrow's got more to work with. And yeah, Jamar Chase is better than Stephon Diggs, right? A lot of Bills fans might not want to say it, but
yeah.
man, Jamar Chase is unbelievable.
Both in the top 5.
Yeah, both in the top 5. But if you had to pick one,
Bengals win this weekend. Are they now the number 1 team in the AFC? Permanently.
Yeah, back-to-back Super Bowls, beating Kansas City in Kansas City. Which another thing, I think the NFL was excited about this neutral field championship game possibility, and I think it would have been a test maybe for maybe making that the norm going forward. Instead of home field advantage for AFC and NFC, you have neutral site games. I think they wanted to see that happen as a test. So that's not going to happen now. It's going to be in Kansas City, and yeah, if Cincinnati goes to Arrowhead and beats the Chiefs again, or no, who do they beat? They beat the Bills.
The Bengals beat the
Bills.
Chiefs.
The Chiefs,
Yeah.
Bills.
The Bills beat the Chiefs in the divisional
yeah.
round.
Right.
13 seconds.
Oh,
everybody
yeah, 13 seconds,
thought
13
that was
seconds.
everybody thought that was the de facto AFC championship, when in reality the Bengals were
Right.
the better team again last year. It's interesting.
So yeah, it'll be a real interesting next week. I don't know. I don't have any idea what's going to happen though. I really don't. Like this week, I felt pretty good about the bets I placed and what I thought was going to happen. And it's satisfying to think something and then see it play out. But this week, I have no clue. who's
Yeah,
gonna
it's
win
definitely
either
gonna
one
be
of those
exciting.
games.
Yeah.
Can we put a little funny thing on the end of, if you were the kicker for the Cowboys, how would you
God.
feel to finally get 2 kicks in a row that finally were good, but that first one tipped?
I mean, it doesn't.
Yeah.
Can you believe? Like, I would feel so
You
bad
can't make
watching that.
up when they block that extra point.
They feel, yeah,
The
they.
Cowboys can't get 7 points for a touchdown.
Right.
That's what their whole season, I felt like, was made of, which was super sad. Was like people wondering if their kicker was going to
Well,
be able
and this
to
is
actually make a
the
kick instead of actually
plight
watching
of
them play.
the plight of the Cowboys is just that they're
poor Cowboys.
tremendously year in and year
Not
out
poor
favored and
Cowboys.
then not favored.
We're all golfers here, though. We've all had the yips, right? And all
Yeah,
sympathize
that's what it
with-
was. And he did bounce back and
Yeah.
kick some butt. I don't know if he'll be back with them next year, but we're not really here to talk about kickers.
I thought it was hilarious, though. You had to put it in there because, that was something exciting. Even though I'm cheering for the 49ers, I'm like, I am kind of cheering for this kicker a little bit to get some positive, kicks
I was the
in a
opposite.
game.
I was continuing to hope he just kept shanking and missing.
That
and missing
poor
and missing.
man.
If you're a Cowboys fan, which there's a lot of them too, man, the same thing. Untimely penalties.
Oh, God, yeah.
Just shooting themselves in the foot. Dak Prescott making terrible throws.
He had a tough night last night.
But I mean, how many times is he going to have these tough nights over and over again? And the Cowboys got a ton of talent. It's almost comical.
That's what I'm saying.
yeah.
That was their season was the comedy aspect of it instead of the actual play, which is really sad for them. But go 49ers.
The Bills last night were pretty comical, too. So.
Yeah, it was frustrating. I have a very, very upset, passionate Bills fan in my household, and it was kind of sad to watch him watch it because he was so defeated.
When you're a kid,
Yeah.
when you're a kid, 1 year is so long.
Oh,
so
yeah.
you get so excited to watch your team, and then you got a team that's with potential to win it like the Bills, and then they lose. It seems like it's so long before they play again. You got to start at the beginning of the season and go through it all just to get back to this one point. And,
You're right. That's what we were going through.
I've been there, Liam. I've been there.
And he's just so passionate. He knows so much about football at such a young age that it's that much more of a heartbreak. And I was like, I am so sorry. I don't know how to be there for you. It's okay.
I was
You're a Bills
huge
fan, true and
Syracuse
true.
fan growing up, and in 1986-87, they were in the and I was a pro Washington fan. In the year after he left, after his junior year to go to the NBA, we came back with Sherman Douglas, Derek Coleman, Ronnie Cycli. I mean, what a team. And we get all the way to the championship game against Indiana Monday night, and Derek Coleman's on the free throw line and misses the front end, and they come down and Keith Smart hits the last second shot. It was the most devastating thing ever. And then I said to myself, well, we'll be back next year, the year after, Well, we didn't get back until 1996, and we lost. And then after that, it was 2003. So you got to capture those opportunities when you have a chance. And that
Those
game back
windows.
in 86, 87 was like they had it, and that makes it hurt even worse. Thank God they won in 2003. But nonetheless, the point is, when you're a kid and your team loses in that fashion, you get so upset. And,
Breaks my heart.
yeah.
Speaking of
That stuff
speaking
makes
of
you a man, though.
Yeah.
Syracuse, though,
Let's do it.
let's say a good weekend for Syracuse.
Sure.
Yeah.
We're gonna call it a good weekend.
You never know what you're going to get.
Don't
but
ask Paul.
We'll take the double-digit wins because they're few and far between. Doesn't matter if you're playing Bryant or Georgia Tech.
Right. Yeah, they had to go into Georgia Tech where they're only 2-point favorites on the road and a good win, and I love the way Joe Girard played. I know you guys both don't. You guys will never like that from Joe Girard, but
No, and Joe
28, 7, and 5, I'll take that.
No, look, when Joe
He's
Girard
awesome.
has a game like that, yes, but you never know when it's going to come, and I guarantee it's not going to come 6 to 8 games in a row in the NCAA tournament. Or, why am I talking about NCAA tournament? We're on the outside looking in. We're not even on the bubble. We need a lot more wins in Georgia Tech. So, Joe Girard's fun to watch when he has a game like that. No doubt.
Right.
No
Fun
doubt.
one tomorrow night in the Dome. Tar Heels at 9 o'clock.
Now that's an
That'll be a fun
opportunity
one.
game for Syracuse to put a winning streak together and get back into consideration for the tournament.
Mm-hmm.
Where's the line? How many wins? What's the marker that you're looking for?
Oh man, Jim Boeheim won 20 wins seasons his entire career until the past few years.
Right.
When he started having his family on the team. Which is fine. Like Boeheim's
That's
earned
big
the right
coming
to do
from Jim.
whatever he wants, and it's not part of this fall from grace for Syracuse basketball. It isn't Boeheim. It's the ACC. It's going to this Southern Conference where we're no longer, something special. We're an afterthought. So, but I won't get into that whole argument. Over under on this year's wins. I want to see him get to 19.
That would be
Before-
19 and they have a chance, or 19 is just like
19 before the selection Sunday, and they have a chance.
You got to win. You usually got to win around 19 to 20, right, to get in?
Right.
Yeah.
But wait, of that, if they're going to get to 19, they're going to need to win a game like North Carolina.
Right. Duke. Yeah.
They need some more quality wins on the resume, and they had really good chances for some that they let slip away, whether it was Pittsburgh or
Miami was
the
really
Miami
brutal.
game on the road against a ranked team. So we'll see what happens.
Virginia at home in a few days. That's got to be an opportunity, right?
Yeah, the last game, the game in Charlottesville didn't go too well though for us. So, but a chance at redemption.
Home.
And another thing I don't like about this ACC is North Carolina's coming to town on Tuesday night, and it's going to be a 9 p.m. start. Like, why would they? Why have games start at 9 p.m.? It's those your attendance, right?
Yep.
I mean, I don't want to go drive to the Dome for a 9 o'clock game and get home at 12:31 a.m. on a Tuesday night.
Right.
I can't stand the ACC. It's the worst conference in college sports, and John Swaffer is the worst commissioner in college sports.
That is a take.
Mark it down.
That is a firm take. Nate, what do we have going on in high school sports this week? What games do we have on tap?
So on a couple good games this weekend. Friday, big win for Palmac. They took down Newark. They held them to 23 points, which was something really
1
intriguing.
point in the third
Wild.
quarter.
1 point in the
Just
third quarter.
shocking.
Yep.
Hard to believe.
Yeah, I mean that really continued to shake up our potential power rankings. They're already posted, so you can see them on our website. We'll talk more about that game and other boys high school games today on Upstate Hoops, 2 o'clock. Me, Jim, Paul over there producing, and Kyle Evans, our sports director, he'll be in to talk more hoops.
Cool.
There was an interesting one on the girls' side. Lions won again. They went to move to 11-2. The boys are having a great season, and so are the girls. And one thing to note out of that game, Jayla Bell gets even closer and closer to 1,000. She was 45
She's
shy,
just a sophomore, right? She's
Yep.
a sophomore.
and she scored. I think she had 20.
2,000.
Yep, very easily. I think she's about 20 or 25-ish short. So I think they might play today. Paul, they played today. Do you know off the top of your head?
Off the top of my head, but it's 22 points short right now, 1,000.
So yeah, presumably she's
Closing
been
in.
scoring in that 20 to
She can
25
do
a
that.
game.
Let's
So she'll
go.
most likely do it next game.
One game.
And we had her on too on Thursday night in Lions when the boys played against East Rochester. We had her, Kara Stevens, and Malaya Glanton on. or Millennia, excuse me. And they were a great interview
Play
too.
that during the podcast later today?
Yep, we have that ready to go. So that was really fun to have those three on and talk about their season and some more upcoming
We
stuff.
just
so
talked
pretty
during
awesome.
football. I was pretty proud of my picks and everything and when I get it right. But if you remember during last week's Upstate Hoops podcast, I said to myself, the Minders girls are way too low on this list. You can't have these Wayne County girls teams ahead of them because a middle Finger Lakes East team will always beat a middle or even the better teams in Wayne County. And going on to win out and beat Minders at home by 10.
Yep.
You are wrong, Jim.
Ouch. That's tough.
So that was shot.
I was going to wait to say that until our episode Upstate Hoops today.
No, I can take it. I can dish out and I can
Say
take
it again. Let him know he was wrong twice.
All right. Well, that is going to do it for this edition of Finger Lakes Today. Rebecca Swift and Paul Russo will be back here tomorrow morning getting you ready for the day. Thanks so much for joining us. And remember, if you want the latest on your smartphone or tablet, download the FingerLakes1.com app. It's free and available on Android and iOS. For Sydney Radka, Nate Sharman, Paul Russo, Jim Sinicropi, and the rest of the Finger Lakes Today team, I'm Josh Durso. We'll see you tomorrow.